Number one, let's just take a look at it again. So this is a test nav question, and these types of questions, you can just type these symbols right into your graphing calculator. So we're going to practice doing that. All right, so we're going to hit 5, and then to get to the cube root, we're going to hit the math key, and we're going to hit option 4. You don't need to scroll down to it. You can just hit math 4. And then we're going to put in the value of A, which was 8. Okay, then we're going to cursor out. That means arrow out, so we're not under the radical. And it was minus a negative 4. So instead of actually typing in minus and then a negative, we could just say plus 4. Now you can type in minus and then a negative, but that is a positive. And then it was the square root of 16. So we're going to hit the second key and the x squared key. And then we're going to type in 16. And we're going to arrow out. And then it was plus 9. Okay, you can type it in just like that. Tells you the answer is 35. Okay, so that type of question is definitely something you can use your calculators with completely. Okay, so type it in, and the answer choice was B. Okay, any questions on that? All right, let's move on to question 2. Now, in question 2, I'm just going to walk you through the steps, so you'll just need to listen. First thing I would do is, and it's really up to you. I mean, if you want to take care of these big numbers on the outside first, or you can take care of your exponents first. But sometimes just even doing 15 divided by 3, which we know is 5, and if I was using my elimination tool, I would definitely eliminate this and this right away, because that doesn't even have a 5 in it. Okay, it has 12. So what they're trying to catch you on is saying, well, these students probably know that you're supposed to subtract exponents when you are dividing, so they're thinking you're going to also subtract the big numbers, and that's why they got 12. Okay, and some people will make that mistake. They'll just start subtracting everything. Okay, but we don't do that. That rule only applies for exponents. So right away, you know 15 divided by 3 is 5. Right away, you could have eliminated these two right here. Okay, so now let's take care of the exponents. When there's a power on the inside, a power on the outside, what do? You multiply them. So this is going to give you a negative 6 at the top. At the bottom, it's going to give you a positive what? 12. Very good. And now we can subtract these two. What is 6 minus 12? Negative 6. But we know we can't leave negative exponents in our answers, so we take that negative 6 into the denominator right here, and your answer choice should be C. Okay. How do you think they got 18? Because they thought you were going to add 6 and 12. So they do things to see, what mistakes will students make. Will they add these? Will they subtract them? Okay, and then they will write that as one of the answer choices, and then you'll think you're right. So you have to be very careful, right? Next one. So this is the one, and notice it says, what is the quotient of this expression? And quotient means what operation? Division. So it didn't even put the division symbol, but it did use the word quotient. So what you should do is write this on your paper, and then you should put the 3x plus 2 underneath of this expression like a division problem. Okay, so remember how you got to factor out the top, and this is already factored at the bottom, and cross out things that are alike, and whatever's left would be one of these answers here. All right, so they're going to think that students might not know what quotient means, so they might multiply 15 times 3 and get 45. Okay, So that's why they got that answer right there. But of course, you guys know what quotient means, so you should know right away that there's no way you're going to end up with these two answer choices right here, because you're supposed to be factoring this and crossing out like factors. All right, so let's see what this factors into. Let me, okay. All right, so using the X method, we came up with -8 at the bottom. The A and C terms gives us -180. Our factors would be -18 and 10. We divide by the A term, which is 15, and then we just reduce these. So when we write our binomials, we start from the bottom up. So that's going to give us 3x plus 2, is that right? And what's on this side? 5x minus 6. And remember, we were dividing this by 3x plus 2. Very good. So when we cross these out, we're just left with what? And that is your answer, 5x minus 6. All right. There we go. So that should have been choice D. Okay. And again, quotient, you got to know, quotient means you're dividing, right? So sometimes you might see the division symbol, sometimes you might see the word, okay? All right, this is an excellent question right here, okay, where you have to factor. And the very first thing I would do, notice how they have choices 3 and 9, like which one would you pick? Obviously, they're divisible by 3. Now, once you do that and it's divisible by 3, obviously there are some other factors. So let's go ahead and factor this one out. So when I divide by 3, I'm going to have 3x squared minus 13x minus 10. All right, so I'm going to do my X method, put my -13 down here. I'm going to multiply the A and C term, which gives me what? -30. And now I need to figure out that it's going to be -15 and 2. Is that right? And then we're going to divide by the A term. The A term is what? 3. We're going to reduce this to negative what? 5/1. Okay. So now my factors are 3 that I took out at the beginning, and x minus 5, and 3x plus 2. So those are all the ones you should have clicked on. X minus 5 and 3x plus 2. All right, see how we did that? All right, you have to make sure you factor completely. Completely means you got to also make sure if there is a GCF, that GCF is taken out first. All right, question number 5. Now this is really a calculator. You could simplify the 180 that is with a calculator, but let's do this first. Let's start with, because you can narrow choices down just by looking at the exponents. All right, so in order for your exponents to be a perfect square, it has to be an even number. Okay, it has to be divisible by 2 because the index is 2, because it's a square root. So this is a 9. So how do I make that where one of them is a perfect square? You can tell me what to use. If that's a 9, how do I break that up? 8 and 1, x to the 8th times x to the 1st. All right, so when you take x to the 8th out, that's going to give you x to the 4th. Is that correct? Yes. All right, and the x is left underneath. So that looks okay so far. X to the 4th, x is left underneath. This is already perfect because it's 16. And what's half of 16? Divided by 2. 8. There we go, right there. There's no other problem up here besides this one. It had x to the fourth, and x and 8. These two right here were the only ones that had the correct exponents. However, you should know it can't be this because 20 has a perfect square in it of 4. It's not in simplest form. So I just actually eliminated all of these answers except for D. But I'm still going to check with my calculator to make sure that this 180 comes out to be 6 and 5. Okay, so let's go to your calculator. We're going to hit y equals. Okay, I need to clear what I have in here. I'm going to put in 180 divided by x squared. And then I'm going to go to my table. Okay, and I'm going to scroll down and make sure 6 and 5 is the last whole number, would be the last whole number. And that is correct. Okay, that's all you have to do. But I really sort of knew that the answer had to be this because this was the only one that had the correct exponents, as well as the radicand was in simplest form. I would have crossed out these two right away because 20 has a perfect square in it of 4. So they would not have been my choices anyway. And that's the way you got to look at these questions. Like, okay, that radicand has 4 in it, which is a perfect square. That is not a simplest form. It cannot be the final answer. Okay. All right. This one here, you can do right on your calculator. Okay. So if somebody would, what is that? 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. I can do that. So I'm going to hit my y equals key. I'm going to put in 3, 4, 5, 6. Since this was cube root, I'm going to divide by x to the third. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the table. And what was the answer? All right, so yep, 6 and 16. Okay, 6 and 16. And again, that's just something you can do right with your calculator. There's nothing else. I mean, there's no reason to get calculator problems incorrect. All right, 6 and 16. All right, here it says, for each value of x, which one of these basically simplifies to 5 cube root of 7? So you would take your calculator and do 35 divided by x to the third, 245 divided by x to the third, and see which one comes out with the 5 and the 7. Okay, who had that answer? All right, how many people had C? All right, that is the correct answer. And again, you just put in 875 divided by x to the third, go to the table, and the simplest form should be 5, 7. Okay, all right, let's move on. So this one is a click and drag type of problem. It says drag the answers to the correct boxes, and each answer may be used more than one time. Complete the equation to create a true statement. So for this type of question where you're multiplying radicals, you can only multiply your outside numbers together. So what is 4 times 2? 8. So you would take that, put it over there. And then you can multiply your radicands together. So what is 2 times 3? 6. And that's all you had to do for that one. Okay, outsides together, insides together. That's it. All right, it says select the correct answer. Michelle correctly solved the linear equation, and the last line of her work was 1 equals to 2. Now we know 1 does not equal to 2. That's not a true statement, correct? So it says, which statement describes the solution to the equation Michelle was solving? The only solution is 1. The only solution is 2. The solutions are both 1 and 2. The equation has infinitely many solutions, or the equation has no solution. What did you guys say? Should be no solution. Very good. All right, this is the last one we'll do because we're just going to do them in chunks of 10. This one you would have to factor. We just had a test on this where you factor and you set the factors equal to 0 and you see what the solutions are. Now, next week, I'm going to show you an app on your calculator that where you just punch in this 2, 5, and 3, and then it'll just tell you what the answers are. But for right now, we're just going to continue doing the math. Okay. So let's factor this out. All right, so if I factor that out, you should have as factors 2x plus 3 and x plus 1. Okay, you set that equal to 0. So when you subtract here, you're going to get x equals to -1. And this should be -3/2. How many people had that one correct? All right, and that was letter what? C. Okay, letter C. All right, so we'll stop there for now and then pick up the next set of 10 next class.